Greetings and salutations. Welcome to this episode of Playwright Spotlight. Before we begin, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below, and share the show with a friend. If you're listening to us on your favorite podcast platform, be sure to leave a 5-star review and subscribe to the channel. My guest today is an alum of the Writers' Room at the Geffen Playhouse, IAMA Theatre Company's Emerging Playwrights Lab, the Vagrancy Playwrights Group, and ArtEquity. His plays include The Bottoming Process and If All That You Take From This Is Courage, Then I've No Regrets, which was the winner of the Samuel French Off-Broadway Short Play Festival. His work has also been developed with Geffen Playhouse, Abingdon Theatre Company, Playwrights Foundation, American Stage, Ensemble Studio Theatre LA, the Workshop Theatre, and Artists at Play. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Nicholas Pilapil. Did I get it right?
You did.
All right, there
Perfect.
we go. Appreciate it. Okay, so I had asked you a question prior to us hitting record, and that was your new play, because I didn't include it in the intro. Mm-hmm. So I want to just start off with that right now. You have a play that has it opened yet or is it about to open?
It's about to open August 29th.
Okay, and that is called what?
It's called God Will Do the Rest.
And that's playing where?
It's at the Los Angeles Theater Center, produced by Artists at Play and the Latino Theater Company.
Okay, all right. Now, what was the whole process of, because that's pretty significant theater,
yeah,
I would say, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so what was the whole process of, one, developing it? Let's start with getting it over there first. Was that a difficult process? Was it selected? Did you submit it?
So I wrote it in the Geffen writers' room, and so we had like a reading at the end of it, and the people at Artists at Play, one of the producing artistic leaders, saw it and was like, just really enjoyed it, picked it up. And like, I know them because I work with Artists at Play as well. They're an Asian theater company. I'm an Asian person. You got to stick with your people. Sure. And so just through like just knowing them and working with them and them seeing that, and I think wanting to do it, they're like, great, let's do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
How many people are in this writers group that you developed it at?
There were 6. No, there were 6 plays, but it was 8 people because one of them was a musical.
I'm going to give you this just because I'm already hot.
Am I sweating?
Well, just in case.
I'm a huge sweater.
Yeah, I'm not too far behind you. So for those of you that don't know, like we're in LA. It's a tepid 81 degrees.
Maybe I'll wear my merch hat.
There you go.
Cover up the sweat.
There you go. No, it's all good. I just want to make sure you're comfortable. So the studio is only equipped with a window unit, which I can't run because it'll be right behind my mic, and so we're gonna make do and hopefully make Nicholas as comfortable as possible. So just handed him a towel for those of you guys who are listening. Okay, so how many? You've got 8 people and a musical, or no?
Yeah, there were 6 plays. One of them was a musical, and that musical team had 3 people. So I think it was 8 of us in it. Yeah.
Does everybody's play get the opportunity to be staged?
At the end of it, we get a 29-hour workshop, which was great. Okay. And then so each one gets 29 hours and then a reading at the end.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. But that doesn't necessarily guarantee a production.
No, not at all. And, they're like internal readings. So it's like, whoever you invite, it's not open to the public. So
right.
At least on my end, I was really strategic. I was like, here are the people I think need to see this play.
Fair enough.
And, it worked.
Okay. We're gonna try one attempt thing. I'm gonna see if I can get this air conditioner to work. So yeah. We're gonna give this a shot. We don't edit, by the way, so you guys are just gonna have to enjoy. Woo! All the bigger podcasts don't seem to throw anything out, and it just gives you the most natural. I'm gonna see if this comes through in the. Can we hear that?
I can't tell. I hear it because I have ears, but I don't know.
We're going to give this a shot. All right. So apologies if this becomes annoying on your guys' end.
It is very my brand, though, because like I'm always hot. And so if there's AC, that's like the brand of me. So I'm just bringing that to the podcast.
Sure. No worries at all. This is going to be experimental. So I'm going to apologize ahead of time if by some chance this is a consistent thing that you guys can hear. Hopefully my body's blocking that hum. So, all right, let's get back to things.
Yeah.
Let's go with the premise. Give me the premise of what this play's about, and then let's talk about the development process of it,
yes.
and especially the development within the group, because I don't think we really talked about how that works out.
Yeah. So the play it's about a Filipino family. It's a family comedy rather, and it starts with the matriarch's birthday, it's her weekend and she wants to have a big blowout. And for Filipinos, that means prayer and family. So, everyone comes over for the weekend to pray. And in Catholicism, we have like baby Jesus that we call Santo Niño, which is like a little statue. And at least in my Filipino culture, there's a statue that just like travels around houses. And if it comes to your house, you pray to it for 9 days. And so that's how the play starts. The Santo Niño comes to the family's house. The mother's like, come over, we're praying for my birthday. And when family gets together in a play, secrets are revealed and fighting explodes. And that's what happens. We laugh and cry.
How much of this is based on actual events in your life?
It's so weird because like I don't consider it autobiographical.
Sure.
But I do definitely pull from the people that I know. And so I will say 10%.
Okay.
Yeah.
But now, is it kind of something where I got to be careful with this because so-and-so might know this is about them or that I'm making commentary?
Yes, but only not because they're that person, but more like I'm not creative, so I stole literal facts from people's lives and like randomly assigned them to people. So like I think some people would be like, wait, did that happen to me? But then they would look at the character and be like, but that's not me.
Right, got it.
But since we were working on the play, like we're in rehearsal right now, I've actually taken some of that out because my favorite thing about working in a production is just cutting pages. And so things that were there are like not there. And it's like my favorite thing. I think since we started a week and a half ago, I've cut like 15 pages.
So let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Especially because the fact that you enjoy it and you're not in love with it loosely. I mean, you could, but you're so willing.
You know why? It's because I want my play to be very good. And I think I'm amazing. So it's all good to me. Mm-hmm. But, when you get feedback, people are like, shorter, you don't need this, you don't need that. And because I believe in myself and I think my play's good. If I take it out, the play's still going to be good. And so like, I have a rule that like, if I hear it from more than one person, I'm like, great, I don't need it.
Okay.
It helps killing my babies, just having that. Yeah. And I'm also good. I love a short play. Okay. And so like 90 minutes, that's good for me. I think we started at like 140 and then like cut 15 pages. So we're a little bit lower. And I don't know, it's collaborative, right? Like, sure. I think also I overwrite. And then when we bring it into the rehearsal room, the actors kind of have this backstory. Mm-hmm. And then once you watch actors act in like a workshop or rehearsal process, all the stuff that's on the page, they can play in a look, in a blocking, in a like inflection in their voice. And so like you just see what you don't need.
How much of those cuts, especially the significant amount of 15 pages, how much of that affected the story?
I don't think any of it did. A lot of it was like, jokes that I had in there, like little things that would just make me laugh. A lot of it was, because this is a Filipino play, it's a full Filipino cast. And I told them, I was like, I'm Filipino American. You guys are Filipino. You know this culture more than I do. And so I worked collaboratively with them. And I was like, if this doesn't make sense, let's work on it. Like, these words came out of my mouth because that's how I see these people. But like, you are these people and they might come out of your mouth differently. Sure. So we kind of like met in the middle. And I was really grateful for that because they helped me trim the words. And they're like, I don't need to say that. I was like, I agree, you don't.
Okay.
Like,
so I want to touch on something because it doesn't come from it doesn't sound like it comes from a hubristic place. Mm-hmm. And not to say that you don't necessarily believe that you're great, but is that just, how do I put this without, what got you to the place that you realize that? Or is this something that you just go ahead and I'm going to keep saying this?
Cutting the pages?
No. Oh. When you said, because I want to be a great playwright, and I am. So so does that come from a place of where did you get to that point where you realize that you are? Or is it just like, I'm going to not buy into it, I'm going to commit to
Yeah, I think
affirming this.
it's very that. It's like,
Okay.
I'm very big into fake it until you make it.
Okay.
And, like, when I first started playwriting, like 6 years ago or something like that,
Okay.
I probably had the same attitude, but I was lying. I think now that I've done a few more things, like, I believe it a little bit more.
Sure.
But I do think, like, if we're going to do this kind of work, if you don't think you're good, then why are we doing it? You know what I mean? Like, you have to believe you're at least good enough to do it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Did you go in with that, or did you like just? Because I mean, we all have
Yeah.
to start somewhere. And
Yeah.
that's why I'm asking. Because
I don't
wanted-
think I did.
Okay.
Like, I literally, when I wrote my first play, because someone told me, they're like, "Oh, I think you're a writer. I think you're funny," and I never thought I would write a play, and so I just tried it, and then in the workshop, I wrote my first play at East West Players in one of their writing classes, and people were just laughing, and I was like, "Oh, is this what actors act like?" Because people laugh and it feels good, and so like always in the beginning, I knew I can make people chuckle. I never thought I was good though, but I knew I liked it, so I had
Sure.
to tell myself, like, you are good, to keep going, right?
Sure,
To make it
yeah,
easier
yeah.
to get better. And it wasn't until maybe like last year where I think I was starting to believe it. Less lying, more believing,
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, you made achievements, and so I think that those things help, and
definitely, yeah.
and I think that they can be the smallest. I think that we have to remember. We have to, as there was a short film I worked on. It was, I think that I wasn't where I wanted to be or something like that, and it just kind of bounce off of that for what you were saying, is that, and for the listeners out there as well, for you guys, is that somebody always has a bigger boat.
Yeah.
No matter what you're trying to achieve, it's never going to be enough because somebody always has a bigger boat.
Yes.
So
And I'm the kind of person who's really jealous, so I know whose boat is bigger than mine. So like a lot of my work is being like, what did I do last year and what did I do this year? And if I did better than last year, then I'm great.
okay.
So it is something that I have to look at, but I'm also looking like, oh, her boat's huge.
Sure,
like,
yeah.
yeah.
But it sounds like but you're very mindful and self-aware. And what do you think that comes from?
I think it's because I should probably be going to therapy and I don't want to do it. And so I try to work on myself alone so I don't have to go back to therapy. I have a solo show called My Dog Died, and it's about, a part of it is about how much I hated going to therapy. And in the play, I do a whole scene as me and my therapist back and forth. And so writing that shows where I learned. I was like, oh yeah, I hate therapy. And I try to self-therapize myself a lot because I just don't want to go back.
Fair enough. So let's go back. So this, God Will Do the Rest. This starts off, you wrote the first draft, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Okay. And you did that before you submitted it to this project? This group?
I wrote my first draft of it in the Geffen Writers Room. So I think that wrapped up at the end of 2022.
Okay.
And so, yeah, first draft was probably like 2022.
And then what's the next step after that?
After that, I pretty much just sat on it until someone said they wanted to work on it. Well, I guess I was submitting it to places, I got like a few finalist things and I was like, oh, I didn't get it. And then luckily, Artists at Play was like, we want to do it. And I was like, thank you.
And why? So you developed at Geffen. It's not playing at Geffen.
Yeah. Why?
Yes.
Well, at the same time that was happening, like they had a new artistic director, right? Like there's just things, and I don't know. I thought they should have done it.
Fair enough, yeah. And that was my mistake. I didn't make that correlation. That wait, the workshop is not at the same place it's being performed.
Correct. Yes.
Did anybody's play get chosen to be at the Geffen? And that's not
on the
knock
main
on
stage.
you.
I don't believe.
Okay.
Not out of my cohort. I think in previous cohorts, one or two have, but not in my cohort. I think one play in my cohort might have been brought back to do another workshop.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think any of them have been produced on the stage.
Okay, so you sign up for this workshop at Geffen.
Mhm.
What's that process like? Is it like, hey, give us money, you're in? Or is it like,
Oh, no,
we need some work? What does that look like?
They take proposals, so you have to pitch the play to them. So I did
Okay.
pitch them this play, God Will Do the Rest, and my pitch was like, I want to write Asian August Osage County. Like my goal, because this is the way I love to write. I like to start with genre. So my last play, The Bottoming Process, that was produced at IAMA Theatre Company, that was my rom-com. And then going to my next play, I was like, I want to write the like Lort theater play, right? The the family living room play. I was like, what would my version of that look like? And so that's what I pitched. And the real basis of that play though was that it was around COVID, so there was this fact that I read in Time. It was like 3 out of 5 nurses that died on the front lines were Filipino, and I was like, oh, what is the reasoning for that? And there was something that I read. It was just that like Filipinos have this like weird sense of duty to do what's right while sacrificing like everything else, like family, this and that. But then, they're willing to sacrifice as a nurse for like all these patients and die. But like when you're in your family, like your parents don't tell you they love you. No one talks to each other. And it's so weird that there's this line of how much they're willing to give to other people, but not to you. And I was curious about that psychology. And I was like, great, let's put that in a family play instead in the living room. And so that's kind of what I pitched to them. Like that fact mixed with like the genre I was trying to play with, and based off of that, I had like an interview and then got in.
So you actually started out with, which I don't see very frequently anymore these days, is you started off with, you actually wrote a play that's in one location.
Yes, so it's like the first floor on a house, and it's like a living room, a kitchen, and a dining room, and that's it.
Bear with me because I'm going to turn this down.
That's great. Yeah.
Hopefully this will get rid of the hum, but we can still keep the air on.
Yeah.
Were all of your plays, have all your plays been single set, single location?
No. I think earlier on, I was writing plays because, I don't know how to write a play. I just write a play based off how it feels. And so, like, I would change locations like it was a movie because, when you write your first play, you're like, yeah, things change. Right, and then you see how theater works and you're like, oh, yeah, we can't do that.
Right.
So for this play, I actually challenged myself to keep it all in one place because I thought it would be harder to do. And I was like, try it. And it was hard, but, it was a nice challenge and I think it works and it felt right for this. But yeah, it was my first one doing it like that.
Would it have worked with multiple locations?
It would be a different play.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it would work. It's very much about like a household and, yeah, I don't know if it would work. It wouldn't, yeah.
What were the challenges of going that route and what did you learn?
Well, right now what I've learned is how hard it is to block those kinds of plays.
Okay.
And transitions are like difficult, but like in the process of writing it, it was like, how do you keep things there? I think in previous plays, my scenes are shorter. For this play, the scenes are so long. It's like the play takes place in like 3 days and, my last play took place over like 3 years and it was trying to like condense everything and keep the story like clipped into this moment, which was difficult for me. It's like trying to write, I want, there's like 7 people too, and that's the largest cast I've ever written.
Okay.
And it was like, how do I get 7 storylines within 3 days within one location, and trying to balance that and still make it full was hard, but I think I got there,
Okay. Did you go in with 7 characters in mind?
No.
Okay.
I think I knew for sure there were like 4. It was like a mom, dad, a daughter, and the daughter's son. And then as I write the way I always write, I just like, I plop in 2 characters and just like write them back and forth and they talk and it kind of just expands from there. Right. I don't really outline as much. I think based off of that proposal, even when I proposed a play, there wasn't an outline. It was like, these are the themes. Here's this quote that inspired me, and here's August Osage County. So it kind of just grew when I was like, oh, this person needs this person because that person brings conflict and this and that. And then, I capped at 7 because I was like, I want this to be produced, and that's already sounds hard.
Right. So the proposal is what brought out the 7?
No, it was starting to write it.
Okay, got it. Yeah. Okay. So what's the proposal aspect look like? I'm assuming that some of these, a lot of these other workshops probably have something similar. So talk to me about the process of the proposal, what the expectation is,
Yeah, I don't.
The guidelines or requirements? Or?
I don't remember what their guidelines were, but like, it was pretty much typically they're like, "What do you want to write? Why do you want to be in this group?"
Mm-hmm.
And that's sort of like typically it, you know. And for me, when I write proposals, I don't tend to be plot heavy. I just tend to lean more on like inspiration and themes and big ideas.
Okay.
So I actually run a writer's lab with IAMA Theatre Company. I run their emerging writers lab, and so like I read proposals for myself, and so like all the proposals I read, they're all different. Some people will give you like an entire outline. Some people will give you like what I just said were just like ideas, and some people mix them all together. But so yeah, I think I've seen many kinds. My version is big ideas and themes.
What's a good proposal since you review them for yours?
I like someone with a plan. Okay. You know, like I'm less interested in your plot because I've been in so many writers groups and I've ran like 3 cohorts of a writers group with IAMA, and plot changes in the room. So it's like, I don't care what happens if you give me beginning to end, because I honestly don't believe you'll stick to that. But if you know like what you want to write about, why you want to write it, you know, I think that's what attracts me to a proposal. Okay. Because it's like you have a foundation and then you can build on that in the room instead of like coming into like the room with your house built already, which kind of like, that's why we're going into the writer's room, right?
What's a bad proposal?
You know, you can kind of just tell. You can tell when people are applying because they just want to get in, right? Where it's like you can read a proposal and be like, I don't think you want to write this. Or something that I see a lot. It's like, I can tell that you're trying to see what I want to hear. You know what I mean? Also, for me personally, if I see COVID, I'm like, ugh. You know? Or like, I get a lot of like COVID plays and Trumpy plays, and I know that's the world we live in, but like, I think we're exhausted of seeing that.
Sure. Right. Yeah. So with Geffen's, is there a fee? No. And with yours, is there a fee?
No. Yeah.
Okay. So.
Yeah, I've never been in a writer's group where they've had you pay. Please don't pay. Please don't pay to get into a group. It's not worth it.
So how long does it go?
It's like an entire theater season. So typically, I think we start in the fall, and then we end in the fall, maybe in the winter. So, yeah, almost a year. And
are there other requirements that you have?
Just have to bring in pages when they're required of you.
Okay.
You know, and you know, like if you don't, no one gets in trouble because we're all adults. But it's like we all do, and you know, it's like if everyone else in the group is meeting deadlines and you have to do it, it's just like a respect thing. But we don't get in trouble. You just kind of get like, you know?
Where was I going with that? Gosh darn it, never fails. There's always something. So if somebody gives a proposal and gives some words of encouragement, because like some people might hesitate, was like, well, I don't want to write this proposal because somebody might steal it.
Oh, I think that's so weird. I don't think that's a thing.
Okay.
Like honestly, like people have said that to me and I'm like, oh, it's because you've never written anything before. Like I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but like I just have never come across that, or I've ever had that fear, or spoke to anyone who has ever like felt that way, that writes. Right. You know what I mean? Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think anyone is out there to steal your idea. Maybe if they're asking you to pay to get into the group, they might steal your idea. But like these other ones, I don't think that's what we're trying to do.
Okay.
And especially like when we get into the groups, you write agreements and everything, right? And it's like the theater promises to give you space and a reading at the end, and in there they also say like, and we hold no rights to your play. So like it's even on the page when you get in that like it's all, you own everything.
Right. Well, that's different than, you know, holding your rights is different than somebody like hypothetically, like let's say they didn't get in.
Yeah,
is what I mean.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, somebody that play is, you know what I mean. I think that's really where I'm coming from in that regard.
Yeah, I guess like I don't know. Like I've just never ever thought someone would do that.
Do you think it's also because I don't have time for that. I've got my own
Honestly,
thing.
that's
so,
true. And also, like, with a lot of writers groups, at least with the Geffen one, like, it's not ran by a playwright.
right,
You know,
sure.
the IAMA one that I run, yes, I'm a playwright, but I don't write plays with the group.
Okay.
I'm like a moderator and just someone to like facilitate. And like, you know, before I ran the IAMA group, I was in the IAMA group, you know,
Okay, right.
so like, yeah, I think most groups aren't really run by writers, so I don't think they're trying to take your
Sure.
ideas.
Right.
Yeah.
No pun intended. How many proposals are you getting? And do you have a cutoff?
I don't have a cutoff. This year we got like over 200 with IAMA Theater. You know, I think if we're talking about the Geffen, I bet you they got twice as much as that.
Sure.
But last year with IAMA we got like 150, so it is growing, but that's a lot.
No, it is.
Because like, you know, I read every single one.
That was my next question.
I do have a little reading committee where they do first reads, and that's mostly not to help me read everything, because I will read everything.
I'm right there
I
with
think
you.
it's fair.
Right. Yep.
But it's more to be like, I need someone to balance my opinion and my taste.
Okay.
Because that's like one thing where I'm like, you know, I like what I like.
Sure, 100%.
And, you know, if someone's coming in with a play where it's like not my thing, it's harder for me to get past it. Even though, you know, so I have those people to hold me accountable, being like, no, it's good. You may not like it. And I'm like, you're right. I may not like it, but it is good, you know? And so that's what they're for, but I do read every single one. And yeah.
Do you recognize when it's not good? Do you recognize that you don't like it, but it's good, and therefore you'll still take it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. You know, you can tell, and it's not that I don't like it. It's mostly like, it's not my thing.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
But you can tell when a writer's good.
Sure. Yeah.
Like, honestly, you can, like, we take 10-page samples.
Mhm.
Like, honestly, on page 2 or 3, I'm like, yeah, I can tell.
Okay.
I finish it. But, like, typically, we can tell pretty early on.
No, I'm the same way, because I did. There's two festivals that I ran. One was Play Noir. It's all film noir style one-act plays, and the other one was the Los Angeles Collegiate Playwright Festival. We only did 2 seasons, then COVID came and shut everything down.
Oh no.
Yeah, and I'll get back to it eventually. But with Play Noir, there were years that I was getting like 250 submissions, and
they all come in on the last day.
Oh, it's a good amount of it. Yeah, don't do that.
Oh, I mean, yeah, don't do it on the last day, but do take your time to do it. Sure. Like, people will, like, I'll get them early on, and I'm like, I know none of these are going to be good, and they're never good. It's like the ones that come in like the week before, or the good ones come in, and you can tell because they like put time into it.
Are you a stickler with deadlines? Will you take something like they say, hey, look, I'm sorry I missed it by a day or two. Will you still take it? You're like,
I won't do it.
Really? Okay.
Because I think it's a fairness thing. Like, if everyone else, like, it's competition, right? And it's only fair for competition if you follow the rules.
Right, sure.
And, like, I would love to be flexible, but, like, when there's 200 people trying to get, like, 6 slots, it's only fair for the people who follow the rules.
Right.
To get a better chance at getting that slot.
Sure.
And there have been times where, like, I've been flexible because, like, they're like, this is why, and, like, if it felt, like, legitimate, where I was like, oh my god, that sucks. I think I've done that, like, once or twice, but I don't know, I can't do it.
No, sure.
Yeah.
Do you send out rejection letters, or you just respond?
I respond to everything. So I respond when I receive it. And then I don't call them rejections, I call them returns.
Oh, okay.
And
I
then
like that.
I will send a return if you don't get in. And then I also do, and we don't publicize it, but internally I'll be like, you made my semifinalist, you made my finalist. And so, you know, I think those are always nice for the people to, like, put on their resumes. And then, yeah, so I do send updates. Everyone will know whether they got in or not. I hate it when people don't tell you.
Sure.
I think it's like the rudest thing. I'm like, if you don't have that capacity to tell somebody, maybe you shouldn't be doing this.
No, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Or put a cap to where you know you can get back to everyone.
Sure. Do you personalize it, or is it a form?
I personalize it.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have a lot of things in common in that regard. And it's grueling.
It is. It's a lot of work. And, like, I always get scared. I'm like, I'm going to, like, call someone else's name.
I made the mistake because it wasn't a form, because I still put the personalized aspect to it.
Yeah.
But I made the mistake of, like, putting the wrong name once or twice and catching it. I'm like, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
There's a lot of these, you know. So yeah. So, all right, let's go back. We're going to go back a little bit. So we're going back to the workshop. So then you submit, you get accepted. How often are you guys meeting at that point?
Once a month.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, better. I'm sorry. Let's. I want to, rather than your experience, I want to talk about your workshop or your. So you guys meet once a month.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And then, what's the process? What do you guys do from there?
Pretty much. For the IAMA group.
Yes.
Yeah. So we meet once a month. 2 writers go up each month.
Okay.
And they bring in 30 pages each.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And so then we switch, and then the second time you bring your next 30 pages, and then the third time you go, we read your entire play.
So you're saying two writers a month?
Yeah, so you only get to bring in pages 3 times.
Okay.
And so the other times you're actually just there to support everyone else.
So are you meeting weekly then?
No, we meet once a month.
Okay, so if there's only 2 writers.
Yeah, so like 2 writers a month, and then the next month will be the next 2 writers, and the third month will be the next 2, and then we kind of cycle.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, so you might not get your next 30 pages
Mhm.
until
like 3 months.
Got it. Well, that gives you plenty of time to actually really work through stuff.
But like I'm not a person where the 10 pages weekly or 20 pages like works for me. It does, like like getting to bring in like 30 pages of an idea and getting feedback on that huge chunk where you can actually see arc, right?
Yeah.
Is so much more, in my opinion, beneficial than being like, here's 10 pages. And like 10 pages is nothing.
No, and 100%. And that's why when the writers group that I was in, I stopped because I found that instead of working on the next 10 pages, I'd go back and work on the same ones I already just did, and I'm not going anywhere. And I kind of made it to a point where like I can't participate in this as a writer unless I have something that's complete. But I like that 30-page thing.
And I stole that from the Geffen Playhouse, because that's what we did at the Geffen Playhouse. Sure. We did 30 pages each. And so after I finished at the Geffen, and then I was doing the IAMA group as the moderator or facilitator, I was like, this is how we do it now, because it like works so well.
Sure, yeah.
And so I don't know who at the Geffen came up with that, but I stole it. I'm sorry, or thank you. But it's amazing. It works. And we at IAMA, we just finished our last cohort. We had a festival in July where all the writers went up, and like their plays were so great and so full and so developed for just like a first presentation. And I was so impressed with all of them. And I really do think it's because you get to work in chunks and you get to work in bigger vision than the 10 pages where it's like nothing. Well,
no, I mean, it's a really fascinating take, because it's also, you don't feel like it seems like an easier commitment on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you've got the time to write.
Yeah.
You know,
the thing is, they all still write the 30 pages the week before, but
deadlines.
But you got 30 pages out, and that's amazing.
So let's go through this. So you go 30 pages, then you go your next 30 pages. There goes the next 30 pages. Now we've gotten to what, 6 months now, maybe?
Yeah. So the third time we just read the whole play.
And so when are you? So is that when it happens where they get to hear the changes you made from the first 30, the second 30, and then got it?
Yeah.
Okay. So you meet for a total of, well, you're meeting more often, but you get 4 times that your work's.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about differences and similarities besides the 30 pages from Geffen. What are other similarities between yours and Geffen?
You still get the workshop at the end. With IAMA, we do a 16-hour workshop. Director, you get full casting support. You get a reading in a theater where the public comes. And so that's similar. Honestly, all writers groups are the same. I think
But they're not, because you do 30 pages and a lot of people do 10 a week.
I think what I do in my group, I like to be harder on the writers.
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
And then this is all just based off of my preference and experience. Like I don't like being in writers groups where people are too scared to tell you what they think, where they're polite. Like I hate a polite writers group.
Sure.
And so what I've noticed with the IAMA group is that the bond that we all create tends to be very strong, where we're able to be very honest with each other in like a respectful way, where we're not scared to tell you, right? But we're also not like upset to receive it, you know? So it's very that. And yeah, I call, my friends call me their tiger mom, because I'm very like, you know, like this is how it, you know, and I'm not tough, but I'm not gonna coddle you.
Sure.
You know?
What does the feedback process look like in your group?
Yeah, it's pretty much based off of like Liz Lerman. Same thing, you know. Okay. It's like, what popped? What questions do you have? You know, what needed clarification, or like what was confusing? Okay. You know, so based off of that, it just all naturally comes out. We don't like pitch or be like, I think you should do this. You know, it's just more of, how did it make you feel? What are the reactions? What worked well for you? Mm-hmm. And, you know, organically out of just those things come a lot of things that actually help you. And then the writers, you know, I say like, okay, what questions do you have for us? And then, you know, they can get whatever they're looking for as well.
Right. How many do you cap out at? How many do you select?
6.
Okay, so you select 6. Mm-hmm. And then when you... So it's once a month, but then how do the readings work?
The readings work pretty much like a new play festival. Okay. Like, oh, it's so hard because I had to produce those.
Sure. Yeah.
I like produce 6 readings. Yeah. And it's like, I'm like emailing directors. Because also what I like to do, and I don't know if other writers do this, but like I pair directors with the writers, and I like to give writers between 2 or 3 directors and being like, I want you to meet with these people, and I want you to talk to them. Then I want you to tell me who you want to work with. Okay. And, you know, part of that for me is like, then now you know 3 directors that you didn't know before.
Wow, okay.
You know, and then also giving them the choice to like create the process that they want, right? And, you know, I think I've been in writers groups where you get assigned directors and it's not always good.
Sure, yeah.
And, you know, and I think because for IAMA, it's an emerging writers lab, you know, when I came into it, I was like, okay. When I came into it, it was it was called the Under 30 Lab. Okay. So I was in the Under 30 Lab, and I ran one cohort under the umbrella of Under 30, and then the second one, I was like, and with the group, I was like, we should change it because we should just open it up.
Is it when you say Under 30, that's age-wise?
Yes, okay. Age-wise. Okay. And so then we changed it from under 30 to just emerging, and so it opened it up, and then we got more people. But pretty much, it's like, yeah, you know. If you're emerging, you go into these groups to get something out of it. So it's like meeting people, meeting directors, meeting actors, this and that. So part of the festival producing is a lot of pairing with directors. They get paired with the casting director, and the casting director gives them choices. So they get to see like a slate of actors, and they get to pick who they want to work with. And then they have a full rehearsal process where they go like into the theater, they do all the table work, like 4-hour days, and then they have like a stage reading at the end. So, yeah.
What is that? Well, first of all, where do you find your directors? Is that people that are part of the company?
Yes. IAMA is an ensemble, so some of them come from the ensemble. You know, if they want to direct, they like, hey, I want to direct. I'm like, great, I'll put you in the mix of everything. But for me, also, it's like, I just watch things. Like, I know who's out there. I've worked with people. Sure. Yeah. I make it a point to watch readings and to watch new plays. And, you know, at the end of the cohort, like, I know these plays and I know the writers and I know their style. And just based off of what I've seen and who I know who will be good for what play. Sure. And a lot of the times when I reach out to these directors, I don't know them. I email them like, hi, I'm with this, and I saw your play. It was very good. Do you want to meet with this writer? So it's a lot of just seeing theater. And I think that's what more people need to do. Watch theater.
So it's not even, they don't have to be a company member if
No, not at all. Yeah. You know, with IAMA, because it's an ensemble, we start with the ensemble. Even with the actors, we're like, you know, they get priority, but, you know, they're also working actors and working directors, and a lot of times they're also not available, you know, so we do like mix and match, and there's always like a good amount of ensemble people, but, you know, outside people as well.
And then then what's the stage reading look like?
Pretty much music stands. It's very
Okay.
simple,
Okay.
up and down.
So there's like no set or anything like
No,
that?
no.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just curious in that regard.
It's like a cute black box theater.
Sure. Well, yeah, absolutely.
I'm like the reading person where it's like, I know we call it stage readings, but I'm like, I don't need anything.
Right.
Like sit down, stand up, and read the play. I'm also the kind of person that's like, I don't even need you to look at each other. Like,
Right,
just read out.
Right.
I feel like that just muddles things, and it's like at this point, that's not what this is about.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I'm indifferent to which approach. The living room series that the Blank does. I don't know if you've ever seen the.
I haven't. No.
So they do that. They do stage readings, and Stephen Kaplan, who had submitted to Play Noir before, he had something that was showing over at the living room series, and it was Brock. It was something. It's basically based on the Bronte sibling that you don't know, the brother.
Uh-huh.
And it's brilliant, but the way that they staged it is they kind of had a set, they had props, but they carried their scripts with them.
Oh, it's like a workshop production-ish.
Yeah.
I've had one of those at a Fountain Theater.
Okay, yeah.
I was a part of one of their reading series, and it was like a battle reading series where you had to go up against another play and they voted for you. And so like I made it to the end, and at the end I won. So then you got to do your full play, and that's kind of what it was. It was like, I guess technically they were like a workshop production where it was like set-ish, lights-ish.
Right, yeah.
Like blocking, but they held their scripts.
Sure.
But like it was like a show. They just held their scripts, and that was interesting. It was fun, very fun. That was like my very first play, but like, yeah.
Because it's they're rehearsed. It's not like they're not rehearsing. I'm not doing like a cold reading. And it was very well performed. I loved it. It was spectacular.
And I feel like with the IAMA festival at this point, like they're fresh out of the writers group. Like this process is for the writers, not for the director. So it's like, you're there as a director to help this playwright rather than for you to show me what you can do.
Right. Sure. Okay.
Yeah. And that's how also I judge reading directors, where I'm like, I can, like, it's so weird. I don't know if you think this, but like, you can watch a reading and you can tell it was directed well, even though there's like no staging or like no, like, all the bells and whistles.
Sure. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I can still tell you're a good director, even though you don't do all those things.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I think it's an important thing. If rather than, I think it's important for me. It's important to just tell the story.
Correct. Yeah.
My approach from a directing aspect is not to like. It's really kind of what's on the page. And maybe there's stuff that's on the page that I'm not even seeing, but I just want to tell the story as truly as I possibly can, based on without adding my influence of like, this is my interpretation and this is what I think it means. And I don't know. That's just me. I'm a simpleton in that regard.
Yeah, a good director can see what's on the page and see what's underneath that, and then bring that out too. And that's what I love working on readings with certain directors. Like I'll put everything on the page and they're like, oh, but this thing is like, the subtext or context, and they pull it out. And I'm like, yes, that's exactly what it is, right? Like they can draw the performance and they can tell the audience what's on the page that's not on the page, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Let's
talk about the process of like of what's been going on with this current play. God will do the rest. As far as it's in, and now. What's been the rehearsal process? What did it start with? Where are you at now?
Yeah, so with this play, with Artists at Play and the Latino Theatre Company, we started in January. With just an internal workshop. Wow. Okay. It was like a entire weekend. I brought them the current draft. We read it with actors. We came back. We rehearsed it. And then. I wrote new pages, I cut pages, and then at the end of that weekend in January, the theater invited their donors just to get a behind the scenes, and then we read it and performed it for them, and it was a lot of fun. And then after that, I wrote a new draft, and then we came back in March to read the new draft, just a one-day cold read at the table with another batch of actors, and then from there I wrote another draft. And then from March, we started rehearsals at the end of July.
And this has already been chosen.
Yeah.
Just the process is that long. You guys go for 8 months.
Yeah. Well, it was like, they're like, we're going to do your play. And I was like, great. And I was like, if we're doing this, I would love to workshop it more.
Okay,
And they're like,
sure.
great, we can give you more time.
Wow.
And
Okay.
so we did those 2 workshop with months in between. And then officially the rehearsals started in January. And, with that,
How frequently were you meeting in the beginning?
in the beginning, it was just in January, we did like a entire weekend. I think it was like Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Okay.
And then in March, we just did like a Friday or something like that.
Okay.
And then now that we're in rehearsals, we rehearse 6 days a week.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Mhm.
And when did you start rehearsing?
July 29th.
Okay, so
Yeah.
it's not a lot of time.
No, yeah.
It's 4 weeks maybe.
Yeah, I think we rehearse for 3 weeks, and then we have a tech,
Okay.
and then we start previews.
Okay. All right. What's changed since rehearsals?
It's a lot shorter.
Okay. Right.
um,
But you had already cut the 15 pages.
I did. I've done
you
that in
change more?
rehearsals.
Okay.
Yeah, in this rehearsal process, just these past few weeks, I've cut like 15 pages. I've
Okay,
written.
so that wasn't back in the workshop. Okay,
Well,
great.
in the workshop, I cut like even more pages from there.
What was the original length?
It was like 150, I think.
Okay, so that's when you said overwrite, and it's not a
Yeah.
judgment call. I mean, you really.
I
It's
do.
like, I'm
Yeah.
throwing it all in there, and whatever, and we'll figure out what the play is
Yeah, I think
from there. And now what's
at the
what's
top
it at
of the
now?
year, it was at like 150. At the end of January, when we did our first workshop, I think it went down to like 130.
Okay.
And right now, it's close to like 115-ish, maybe,
Okay.
around there. So like, yeah, it got a lot shorter.
Still running 90 minutes.
Yeah, it might, on the page, it's 90
Right,
minutes,
okay.
not including transitions,
Got it, okay.
blocking laughter. I think all that makes it longer, but script-wise, it's about 90 minutes.
Okay.
And, one thing for me, I think as we go into like tech and previews, I will consider cutting more if it's getting too long with all the elements put in together. Because I don't want to make anyone sit that
Sure.
long. Because I don't want to sit that long.
Do you think would you think with social media and whatnot that our attention spans have just
Yes.
Okay.
I also think nowadays plays just aren't as long as they used to be.
Right,
So
sure.
I think more newer audiences who maybe haven't been watching theater as long as like the people who've been watching theater forever are used to a 90-minute setup.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's like a little bit of both, I think.
Is it continual dramatic action and just fast paced? Or
Yeah.
all of your work, or
Mostly.
Okay.
Like I think, on the page, like my writing, it's very like go until you have to stop.
okay.
Like I always write this on like my like character title pages or whatever. It's like, this play is a comedy. Don't play the drama until like you can't but play the drama. Because I've done workshops of plays, and that's why I put it in there.
Sure, yeah.
Where they're like, "Oh, this sounds dramatic, so I'm gonna be sad." I'm like, no, no, not at all. Like, it's like, is that how people are in your life? Because I've
Right.
never seen that before. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, we're always hiding. We're never telling the truth. We're always deflecting. So it's like, until it's the real moment where you can slow down.
Right. What you mentioned character description page. What do your character descriptions consist of?
It's like name, age, and then I write like one sentence where it's like, I think in God Will Do the Rest, the main character, the matriarch, her name is Maggie, and it says like, rocks a fake Louis Vuitton purse, and then her husband's line is like, Birdie, Filipino, his wife wears the pants, and like that's all. I don't want to paint too much of it for a person, but like I like to give them that.
No, I like that. That's insight into the character, opposed to like where and especially with newer playwrights, younger playwrights. And I think they're actually taught this as well, where it's like so and so is this kind of person. They and I'm like, I don't need to know that because I better see it in the play.
Right.
And there's
exactly.
there's been times where like you said all this stuff and I don't see that
Right.
at all from this character.
Yeah.
How specific do you get in your set as what's there?
I'm not that specific. Like that's
Okay.
not my job.
Sure. I think that's a lot of things. I think that's What a lot of playwrights don't remember.
Yeah, and it's just like, like the goal for me is always to do the play, right?
Sure,
and
yeah.
if we do the play, like someone else is going to come up with that.
Right.
So it's like I can give you like little bits just in my mind that I need in order to write the scene, but based off of my experience and like just with this process, and I've only had like 2 plays done. So the one that I did last year, like whatever's in the stage directions will change once you're staging it based off of the director and the actors and how the set's built and whatever. So it's like, I'm not married to it. For me, it's just the words. And as long as you can read it easily, that's all I think I need to provide you.
Sure. And then what about stage directions?
Same thing. I try to keep it minimal.
Sure.
I do think it's fun when people like inject their stage directions with their personality, and it makes me chuckle. But like at the same time, I'm like, for me, I'm like, I don't need to add to my page count.
Right. Sure. So are you saying that you only use them when it's absolutely necessary?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I am a big like beat person because of what I said before, which like I like everyone to go until you stop. And so like I will throw in a beat and like also on the character title page thing I do write, take each beat deliberately, because like when I'm telling you to stop, I actually want you to stop. And are
you actually just using the parenthetical beat?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I do really like them to go until they tell them to stop.
Are there any other things that you throw in that are? I'm not saying that beats are not traditional, but are there any non-traditional things that you throw in there that are your personality?
No, not really. With God Will Do the Rest, it has Tagalog in it, so I did have to do like translations. Sure. I have like brackets and things like this, but I don't stray too much from how plays are written typically. Mm-hmm. Nowadays, those kids are crazy. I don't think they know what formatting is. Like I'm like, whoa, what's this? When
you say format, you're talking about like I don't know if do you use Final Draft?
I use Final Draft, yeah.
Okay, so I want to touch on that in a second. Yeah. When you say that you don't think they know what formatting is, how do you mean?
Well, like you can format your play however you want, but like Final Draft.
Can you though?
We use Final Draft, and how you use Final Draft is kind of like, here's how you should probably do it. I'm like, yeah, that's great because it's easy to read.
Sure.
But like nowadays, like things are on the left and right. Things are like landscape or like horizontal.
Right.
And I'm like, I have to turn the page to like read the script. And, now all of a sudden the fonts are like this big, but then they go this small. And like, it's fine. I'm just not used to that.
That's on the page?
Yeah, people do that now.
Why?
Like one person was like, hi, like they submitted to the writers group. They're like, hi, I noticed that it says 10 pages is the sample, but like my formatting's different and the fonts get big. So can I submit more than 10 pages?
Are they submitting a play or a ransom note?
Sometimes they do look like ransom notes.
That's what it sounds like.
But so, and like a lot of people do it actually. Like it's not like I see it often-ish.
Sure.
But I'm just not that person.
The reason why I ask, and somebody finally gave me a good reason, and I can't remember what that reasoning was, but it always drove me nuts in the beginning when I first started writing, because how the format is on the page as far as Final Draft is not how the play is printed. And so that's why I was asking, how is it formatted? Because if people are used to reading a play in a certain format from Sam French or or dramatist, it's not formatted the same way that they expect you to submit it.
That is true,
and it's misleading and it's wrong.
I guess it's because I read so many just like scripts that like to me, I'm like the way Final Draft tells you to write is what a play looks like to me.
Right.
I think like like once you get into the idea of like, I love new plays.
Right.
I haven't read a Samuel French play in like forever. I don't know what they look like anymore. You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
I read plays off of New Play Exchange, or I talk to literary manager friends and be like, can you give me a play to read?
Right,
you know what I mean?
Sure.
So, yeah.
What is your, what are your rituals?
For writing?
Yep. Like, do you have to,
oh, okay.
Do you have something, I have to have my tea, I have to have my music, or do you just like?
I treat it like work, so I have to not be at home.
Okay.
I have to like be at a desk. I have to be secluded. Like what I like to do, I like to go to WeWork or go to the library, and I like sit there like I'm clocking in hours.
Okay.
And that's pretty much the only thing I need to do to write.
So if you're clocking in hours, do you have to, do you have a specific shift, quote unquote?
Actually, yeah, on my calendar, I'll do like 5 hours.
Okay.
Like block it out. And, think more than that, I get tired and I don't do it.
Okay. So you don't necessarily commit. It's like, I got to leave early today.
Oh, yeah. Sometimes.
Okay.
Sometimes, like you kind of tap out and
Right,
I'm like,
right,
like I'm lost. I've hit a bump. And, for me, if I hit those, like, I don't find it helpful to like fight it. Like I'll get to it and it's fine.
When you're at the library or at WeWork, how do you avoid distractions? Cell phones, whatever.
Oh, I
Internet.
think that's what I do to like avoid distractions. It's like, the distractions for me are like, if I write at home, it's like, then I'm going to clean or I'm going to get hungry.
We talk about it all the time.
And I'm going to eat. Like being in a public place, it's like, well, I have to stay here.
Right. Right.
And I guess I do like check social media and this and that, but it's really just getting out of the house is what gets me to write.
Right. And then process.
Yeah.
What is it? Do you sit down? Do you do a first draft before you do anything? When you get that first draft, what's next? Do you do?
It's weird.
Do you do the pizza party? What?
I just write until I'm like, oh, it's done. Most of my plays have been written in writers groups as well. So like,
Sure.
That's kind of how also I write, where it's like, there's the deadline. I'm going to the end. It's going to take me 9 months to write this play because that's how long the group is. Right. So that's kind of very much my process. I just wrote a play like earlier this year. I wrote it in like 3 days. And that was like one of the first times where I was like, I just like wrote it, And so that was a weird process for me where it's like, I just got it on the page. And then when I was done, I was like, okay, what now?
What's a bad writers group? Or red flags that you recommend avoiding?
I don't know. I think it just depends on the person.
Okay.
And the kind of writer you are and the kind of work you want to do. I will say for me, what hasn't worked for me is just being in a writers group with people who kind of aren't as serious as you are. I'm going into a writers group because I'm a playwright and I consider it my job and I want to be there and I'm going to work really hard. And it's hard when you have people in the group who aren't as committed to themselves.
Sure.
And because they aren't as committed to themselves, they aren't committed to the group.
What do those people look like?
It's the kind of people where they're just like, oh, I'm writing my first play because plays are cool and I want to try. And then like the rest of us are like, this is our job. You know what I mean? And that's not necessarily like a bad thing. That's just someone who's not on the same like commitment level as you are when you're looking for someone to give you as much as you're giving them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think so. So they're not, their experience doesn't show the level really of commitment
based off even experience. Okay. It's just like, it's just like their seriousness, I guess.
Do you find that those people don't finish?
I've seen some people, who don't. Yeah.
Do they stay the whole time, or like all of a sudden they just stop coming?
There have been a few times where they're like, I'm not coming anymore. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's like, okay, fine. But, and also I think for me in a writers group, it's just, I just want to know the truth. Like, you can't hurt me.
Right.
Thank you for the compliments.
Sure.
Well, but what do you think? And sometimes people don't do that because they don't feel comfortable doing that, or maybe the space doesn't feel safe enough to speak critically. Mm. But I prefer people to be critical.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got to a place with the writers group. The phrase that I found was, "I'm going to call bullshit on that."
Yeah.
Because that doesn't sound real, or it contradicts something else, or like I don't buy it.
Those people are like, oh, you weren't listening. When we were reading, you weren't paying attention. Yeah. Also, like, I've been in writers groups where I always come off as like the mean one because everyone else is too nice, and I'm not being mean. I'm just trying to help you, being like, here's the question you had, and here's like the actual answer to like what you're looking for, rather than like, great job,
sure,
so good, you're funny. I'll be like, oh, you're funny. Also, like, this stuck out because, or, I had a question about this because it was unclear, based off of what you said your goal was.
Right.
And some people don't do that. And then if you're like me and I want to tell you, like, you kind of come out as like the ones who's like, oh. And I'm like, no. Like, that's just the truth because you also asked,
Now, outside of the beginner, the person who's like a newbie and just wants to try it out, you're still working with, I'm assuming you're working with all levels.
Yeah, and it's like in this last cohort at IAMA, we had 2 people in that group write their first play, and it's not like a beginner thing. It's just that like, it's more, and maybe I spoke wrong when I said beginner. It's just more of like the commitment to like the craft of playwriting. Like, do you want to be a playwright, or are you trying it out? Right. And there have been times where it's like you can tell who's like who's someone who's maybe just naturally funny and engaging, and they're like, oh, I'm gonna try this, and then they're just trying it, and they're just not as serious because it's like, it's just something that they're trying on.
Sure.
And in that, that's not to say like all beginners are like that, because like in IAMA, like I said, this last cohort, we had like 2 people who wrote their first plays in the group, and like they are the best. They were so serious and they were so committed, and it's just really like, do you want to be a playwright and do you want to write this play? Or are you here to like, I don't know, like have fun? It's all fun, but you know what I mean. I don't know.
Sure, and we're gonna it's freezing in here. How do they turn out? Did you see growth?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And with IAMA, it's like based off of the pitch.
Sure.
Like you can tell who wants to be there, and based off of writing sample. Because with IAMA, I also accept like TV pilots.
Okay.
Some people have given essays, and you can kind of tell based off like, okay, yeah, you know story, character, dialogue. And with the group, I like to mix it up. So like beginners with more established emerging, with people who are like emerging because emerging means nothing nowadays.
Yeah.
So like multiple levels are in the group, so I do take that into account when I'm picking. I'm like, okay, how does this puzzle piece fit? Okay. And who, like, this writer will help this writer, and then this writer's style is gonna make this person like a little bit better, so all of that comes into play for me in building a cohort, rather than like who are all the best people. So on that note, besides how are these people work, how do you decide who you're taking? So I read everything. I will it down to like the finalist list, and once I get to like a top 15 or top 10, the entire artistic staff reads with me. Okay. And then we pick like the finalists that we will interview, and then based off of like personality and talking and questions and feeling them all out, then we pick the 6. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then the people that you don't choose, do they have the opportunity to get feedback? Reapply? Oh yeah, they can reapply. Okay. Yeah, a lot of people reapply. I like recognize them. Do you give feedback for those? You don't. If they ask, okay, and I have time to, okay, I will. But no, I don't do returns with like a feedback. Right. But if they ask, I will if I have time. Sure. I think, with Play Noir, the only time I ever really kind of gave feedback is when I said that we needed a film noir-based one-act play with a femme fatale and a private detective, kind of the traditional tropes and stuff like that. And then you send me something that's not noir. Right. I'm like, look, this is, what you sent is not noir. I highly recommend you revisit these movies for a good example of what this is. Yeah. And like maybe, submit something next year. Yeah. It's also hard because they're like, how do I be better? And I'm like, well, I can't tell you how to be better. Like I can tell you like, I don't know, but it's hard to come up with all that stuff, especially when you read like 200 things and you have to go back and be like, what did I actually think about this person? Right. Well, I think the first thing, and I think you kind of touched on it earlier, is like follow the directions. Yeah. So if I ask you to write something that specifically is noir, don't send something because you think I'm so good, right, that it's going to get chosen. And honestly, if you can't follow the directions, why would I want you in a group? No, that's true. On that note, what are the other requirements? What are the other Nothing. You just like, you wanna
show
write a
up, bring
play.
pages, and
Yeah.
and give feedback.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's pretty much, just show up the same way everyone's showing up for you.
Okay. What kind of do you have struggles? Do you have struggles still? Are there certain aspects of playwriting that you struggle with?
Yeah. In the rehearsal process right now, like I tend to kind of trap myself into a corner being like, I don't know how to get out of this, in terms of like a note or seeing what's happening. I'm like, that story thing doesn't work. How do I fix it? And so, right, like I know how to write a play because I've watched plays. Like I've never read a book. I've never been to school for it. And so like I find myself bumping up into things like that where I'm like, okay, what's plot? I don't know.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So I do want to touch on that because you mentioned that way earlier, about having it's not something you studied, and it sounds like it's self-taught. What was that like? How did you start?
So I took one class at East West Players, and it was not really a class, it's just a workshop.
Yeah.
They're like, they teach you like, it's pretty much a writer's group that I paid to get into, but it was a class. And like, you get little tips in there, but after that, really, it was just like reading plays and then watching plays and being like, oh, that's what you do. And then what feels right. And that's pretty much what I do. Right. If it feels right, then I'm like, great, that's just what it is.
Because I found that reading, and forgive me because I know I've said this probably in more episodes than I should have, but that I learned, like I would read, but I wouldn't know what was, I don't know what I'm looking at. I don't know what's good. I don't know what works. why does this work? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. And it's like, I'm not reading a play and taking notes. It's just like, I'm absorbing it into my body, that play or whatever. And, when I write a play, hopefully something that I've read before, like sticks with like, oh, that's how they did it, so try it this way. It's like, I'm just trying to be a sponge.
Sure.
I'm not taking notes of being like, oh, this person wrote it like this, so I'm going to write it like that.
Right. Well, I found that what I finally realized when it came to writing is like when I started being on reading committees and reading terrible stuff, and then it's like, oh, now I get it.
Yeah.
Now I know why the other stuff's good.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, this was terrible, and it's just like so much. There's a workshop that I do for a high school theater festival up in Sacramento, and I'll bring two plays, one of what to do and then one of what not to do. And I'd love to do that as an online workshop, but I'm afraid that the playwright whose play that I'm using
right.
Because I don't give the cover page.
Right.
You get the name of the play, but I don't use the playwright because I don't want them to
that sounds dangerous.
Come back and say, why are you bashing my work?
Right. Yeah, just do it with kids.
Yeah, so, but it's interesting. It's just, like just the old basic rule of show, don't tell.
Right.
And I see that I'm talking like when I use the term established playwrights, how people who have a portfolio and have gotten stuff like, well, what is this?
Yeah.
Because how are you a playwright? You have a list of all these titles that you've gotten, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The same way.
And their experience should be with what you're showing me should be a lot better.
Yeah.
Your work of art, your body of work.
Like I don't have like tools, but like the things that I've stuck with when I write plays is that my plays should be shorter than what they end up being. That's always like my thing. It's like, you can cut pages, right? Your scene starts 2 pages in. That's like one of my things.
Right.
Or it's like, oh, whatever that's happening with your character, they should make that discovery in the scene.
Right.
Those are things that I've clocked for myself, where I'm making sure I'm doing things like that.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I know that there are moments where I'm probably saying way too much and being too obvious, as far as like
I am too, and I think that's fine. But it's just like, if your entire play is that,
yeah. Yeah, that one play is like the characters are speaking what should just be in the stage direction.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm going to do this.
Yes.
And like then performing that action is like, yeah, you don't need
Also,
that.
it's like, listen to how people talk.
Sure.
Because people talk a certain way. And, some people write how people talk. I'm like, I've never heard anyone talk that way before.
Right, yeah.
Or like, I've never, like, what I find is like everyone's lying and hiding. And so like your character should be trying to hide their truth too. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's just like, here's everything. I was like, well, it's more interesting if it's like.
Right. Yeah. How do you do that?
How do I do that?
Sure.
I don't know. That's really interesting. I don't know how I do it.
Okay.
I think I'm just writing and I'm thinking I'm doing it.
Okay, fair enough. But still a good tip.
Yeah, I wish I knew. It's just like when I think about it, I'm thinking of deflecting.
Sure.
Right. I think about like when I am in conflict with someone, what do I do? And I shut down, I change the subject. If I want to cry, I hold it in and I don't cry. I kind of just think about how I navigate through the world. And I guess I'm a huge liar because I'm always like, and I just think that's how people are, right?
Sure.
Like we're never actually telling each other exactly what it is.
So, and if you're implementing that into your work, hypothetically, like instead of crying, I'm holding it back. I mean, is that part of your stage directions? Like, or do you,
No.
or is it, or do you think it's obvious the way that you write that this?
I don't put in stage directions. I feel like it's obvious. For actors, it won't be because actors are actors.
Right.
But like my thing also, it's like with my plays, it's like your job is to make me cry, right? You don't cry.
Right.
I cry. And so like I don't need to see you cry on stage. And I hope that's what they can see on the page for me too.
How do you, going back because we were talking about characters, how do you just make your character sound different? How do you make distinct voices?
I don't know if this is right, but like I do things where it's like I give every character a catchphrase.
Okay.
And so like in God Will Do the Rest, one of the sisters, her name is Fritzy, and she says, ew. So it's as simple as that. Or
okie dokie.
Right. And in my play The Bottoming Process, there's a character, his name was John, and he would always say, stop it. And it like you won't notice it.
Right.
But like it's just something. Because I probably have those words.
Sure.
And so we all have them. I try to give someone something like that. And then with some characters, I'll do a thing where it's like, oh, you don't, what's it called? Like, you don't say don't, you say do not.
Right,
Conjunction.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Like some people will be like,
contractions.
Contraction. Yeah. I'll be like, you don't use contractions. And that's pretty much.
Interesting.
Or,
okay.
So I kind of assign certain people, I'm like, you will never say this. You only say this. And I don't know if it works, but that's kind of what I do.
Sure. That's funny. Yeah. I get made fun of. Like my thing is sure. And I've got somebody at work who calls me out on all the time. If I say sure, she's like, sure. I'm like,
see,
I didn't do it then.
We all have it.
Yeah. It's interesting. I like that. I like that approach. I don't think that's,
yeah, because if you notice, like if you talk to someone that you're close with, they have one too. They're little tells.
Sure. Are there any other tricks that you use?
People talk more and talk less. I look at that too. Like who is someone that needs to say little and who's someone that wants to say a lot. And so I kind of play with that as well.
When is it time for a monologue?
Oh, I love a monologue.
Oh, okay. So how do you know when it's time?
I have no idea, but like when it happens, I'm like, oh, I'm so ready for it. Like I love a monologue.
What does a good monologue consist of, or what's a bad monologue?
I don't know if I could say what a bad monologue is. Okay. Maybe a bad monologue is something that doesn't need to be a monologue. Sure. I don't know. Okay. Where it's like, what are you saying? You're saying nothing.
Sure. Right.
I guess for me, like a good monologue is where it's just like, I don't know. I think for me, every time I write a monologue, it's because someone is like, I'm writing like a moment that's going to make you cry. I think every play where I've gotten to monologue territory, it's like, it's time to cry. And so that's how I use it.
Sure. Okay.
For like dramatic moments, and I love writing them though.
This is coming out. You're in the rehearsal process. Are you working on anything else right now?
I am in the Boston Court Writers Group, and so I'm workshopping my solo show that I told you about in there called My Dog Died.
Sure.
So we start that this month. So I'll be working on that play again at Boston Court. And other than that, I'm not writing anything new. I have a play that I told you that I wrote in 3 days.
Right.
I figured out what that play is supposed to be. So when I find time, I'm going to fix that play too.
Okay. And then how different is Boston Court?
Well, I haven't started yet. We start this Sunday.
But like the submission process.
Oh, right? That one, they just did like a general like LA submission. It was like, submit a play you want to work on and then tell us why.
Okay.
Or what you want to work on or something like that. And so it was already written, which is different than usually with my experience. You go in and you're like, you write the play. So this one will be new where it's like, I wrote the play and we're going to work on it. But why I wanted to do it at Boston Court is because they do experimental work. And like I told you, like my play God Will Do the Rest is a living room play. I'm a very like realism writer. Like there's always a couch somewhere, you know?
Right.
And so with the solo show, it's like wild for me. Like
sure.
I have like, and so I have no idea how that play is supposed to work. And I think I told them my proposal was like, you guys are weird. I'm not. Help me get there, you know? And so that's what I'm excited about. And their aesthetic is just really cool. I don't think I'm that cool. So I'm excited to figure that out with this solo show.
And where can people find your work?
New Play Exchange, nicholaspilapil.com. Or you can go to watch God Will Do the Rest at the Latino Theatre Company. I will definitely include the ticket link when this episode drops. And then the final question, are you on the socials? Yes. Everything is just my name, Nicholas Pilapil, NicholasPilapil. And is that on all of them? All of them. TikTok, even Threads, even TikTok. Oh wow! All right. I'm. If you see my hat, I'm into branding and marketing and selling my stuff. So it's all there. How does that help you? Now I'm gonna get that question. Yeah. If you're what marketing tips? There we go. Let's put it as simple and straightforward as that. Be on social media and actually post. How frequently? What's too much? What's too little? I don't believe there's too much. It's social media. It's consumable. I saw too much. I have a dear friend. I'm like, you do not have to post this many times in an hour. If it's in an hour, but I was thinking daily. Yeah. But like, oh no, yeah. See, I can get behind that. I think once a day would be okay. Yeah. I think for me, it's just like, I'm a playwright. I'm a small business, so I need to let you know what's happening. But you also have to make it personable. You have to mix your personal with the professional, and you have to come off as a real human. Okay. And so that's kind of what it is. And it's like, update your New Play Exchange, keep it fresh. People go there. I know people who are literary managers at Lort Theaters who go to New Play Exchange, find people who don't have agents, and then commission them. And I talk to them, they're like, yeah, I tried to read this person's play, but like they didn't have anything. And so like, and I tell these to my writers too, I'm like, you have to have a New Play Exchange. You have to keep it updated and put everything on it. Cause like people are looking for you, which is why also you have to have a website. Why I am on social media. It's like, people will find you. Like that's how IAMA Theatre Company found me for their under 30 lab. Like I was like nobody before them. The artist director found a play on New Play Exchange. She's like, that was cool. Do you want to be in this group? Oh. And so I wrote my play, The Bottoming Process, in that group. And like literally it was a pandemic year. So like we finished it online, but like after we had our Zoom reading, she's like, we're going to produce your play. I eventually, whenever this is over, right? And if I didn't have a new play exchange with a good play on it, I would have never had my first production.
Right.
You know, it all starts there, and like, so you just have to put your work out there. Make it easy for people to find your work, pretty much, because like it works. And like, I know some people don't want to do that. You have to do it. You know, if you don't have an agent pushing your stuff, be that for yourself. You know.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
Nicholas, thanks for coming on the Playwright Spotlight.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Playwright Spotlight. Again, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below, and share the show with your friends. If you're listening to us on your favorite podcast platform, be sure to leave a 5-star review and subscribe to the channel. And in the meantime, until we see each other again, keep writing.